Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. What would you do if you knew for a fact, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you had 1-2 days to prepare for some major event? And it could be a massive flood. It could be a tornado, an ice storm, a hurricane. Some of you have experienced that because you've experienced some of those things. What would you do if you had a day or two before you knew for certain that the entire grid goes down and stays down for an extended period of time? Or if you knew for certain that some type of violent attacks or war were coming to your area? If you knew for a fact, how would you react to that? What would you do over the next 2 days? Based on the amount of money that you have right now? I mean, if you had an unlimited amount, that would be different. But most of us don't. Most of us have a probably small amount in our checking accounts or in our wallet or maybe somewhere else. What would you do? Do you have a plan in place? Have the ideas even entered your mind as to what you would do and the actions that you would take? Because if you've only got a day or two, you have to do things pretty efficiently. Time ticks away quite quickly, especially when you've got a lot to do, and you want to use that time as efficiently as possible so that you get the most important things done. Do you know where you would go? Do you have the things that you need? What would you do? That's a question that I think everyone should be asking, and it's not because I think that within the next 24 to 48 hours, the whole world is going to come to an end or bad things are going to happen. I mean, it's certainly possible. It's always possible. It's always possible that things will happen. I would say in the next 24 to 48 hours, there's an increased chance of those bad things happening based on what is going on in the world, and you know that. But even if those things don't pan out and come Friday or Saturday, nothing has really happened, isn't it still a good idea to just have a plan just in case something like that does happen sometime? With all the things that's going on right now, the things that's happened over the last year or two, and the things that look like they're going to happen over the next several months, we definitely live in very uncertain times. I think it's very likely that the United States will find itself in some state of war, not just sending weapons over, but an actual state of war with at least one of the many possibilities out there right now within the next coming months. I don't see how there's a way to avoid it. If you look at what the United States is sending and doing right now because of what's happened in Israel, it's really far more than what we've done in Ukraine. It's like it was already determined ahead of time to start sending this stuff. I was looking at the carrier groups that were sent over there. Apparently, the story on the street is that these things were pushing full steam ahead. I know they're not steam, you know what I'm getting at. But the point is that they were very rapidly pushing those big old ships as fast as they could to get there. The amount of response in just a few days indicates to me that there's someone somewhere that has a pretty good idea of what's coming. When we look at what's gone on over the last few years, all the predictions, and of course the most important things are these elites and what they talk about. They pretty much tell us. It's hilarious to me how so many people, they'll hear the things that I say or many others, and they laugh and they mock. They say, oh, it's just some conspiracy. Oh, it'll never happen. But yet the people that are in power, that are very clearly trying to run things at the very top levels, talk about this stuff too. And they say what they're planning on doing. And for some reason, people just ignore it. It's like they're glazed over. They don't see that these people openly talk about completely changing the world, openly talking about taking away many of your rights. They openly talk about the fact that it's going to be violent and that people are going to be angry, and that governments need to be prepared for that as all of this change takes place. So what will you do when all of this stuff happens? Do you have a plan in place? I mean, it doesn't need to be rock solid necessarily, but at least have your mind wrapped around things. I've talked to several people over the past few days that have reached out to me. Some of them are very prepared, and they're just asking for advice. Some, they barely have anything prepared, and they're starting to panic, and they're wanting to know what they would do, what they should do based on their situation. The first thing is to not panic, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and there's not really anything that you can do to change that. Yes, we should have been preparing, like many of us have been. Some of you haven't been, but you should be preparing all along. But we're getting to that point that it's not really about preparing, but about being ready, entering a state of readiness. And part of that is just your mind, just understanding that this is what we're dealing with. This is the world that we're in, so that we're not completely shocked and thrown off when some big event happens. That if a massive terrorist attack happened in New York or Washington, D.C. or Minneapolis or Dearborn, Michigan or St. Louis or L.A. or any of these other places, that while, it may be sad, but it doesn't throw us off. We keep our focus and we say, well, it's not too surprising. Now we go to the next level of preparations. We enact the next part of the plan. Since that's happened, we go into action this way. That's part of, a big part of being ready, is that it doesn't throw you off, that you have the mental state that is needed to get through crazy times. And these are crazy times. The stuff that's happened over the past week are quite crazy. And if you go back just a few days before that, we were into Russia doing a nationwide nuclear test, martial law test. We had the United States buzzing every cell phone in the country, testing a nationwide emergency alert system. We had all kinds of crazy things going on in our own government, kicking a House Speaker out. It's always craziness. I mean, there's just crazy things all the time, especially in the last 3 years. It's just been one thing after another, and the sad thing is it's been so much and so often that most of us have forgotten so many things that's happened. I mean, think back to the train wreck in Ohio. And has anyone checked on those people lately? No one has. All of these other things that's happened. There's a purpose for that. It's not a coincidence. It's not just the fact that people are reporting more things. There are, in fact, more dramatic, chaotic events happening. It's being done for a purpose, folks, to condition us and to set the chess pieces in the right place. So the likelihood of all of this that's happening leading us into a place where there is a major collapse, there is a major world war, there is some kind of major violence or some kind of grid down or some type of government lockdown of some sort, well, I think are a pretty good chance. And we have to be ready for that. It may happen in the next 24 hours, 48 hours. It could happen weeks or months down the path. But the odds are ever increasing that it will happen. And we're foolish if we don't do anything. You are foolish. I would be foolish to do nothing based on everything that we see. So we need to keep preparing. That should be common sense. Keep stocking up. Keep getting the things that you need, but also shifting ourselves into a state of readiness. A state of readiness means that we may still be prepping. We've gone quite a ways into the prepping, but now we are gearing up and ready for what we're going to face. And it's just staying with that. I've talked to several people again in the last few days, and You shouldn't be, you shouldn't have for a long time anyways, but by now you should not be going anywhere unarmed. You shouldn't be going anywhere without a certain amount of stuff with you. You know, some type of bug out bag, get home bag, medical equipment. If you are going to make any kind of trips in the next couple of days, which I would advise you to stay home if you can at all possible do that. But if you do have to travel, make sure you take enough stuff with you that if for some reason you got stuck away from home for a few days, you'd be all right. We should start thinking along these lines. We should become more alert and aware of what's going on in our communities and around our home. Vehicles driving by, suspicious activity, being more alert and adamant about checking things like locks and lights and making sure everything's working just fine. We need to be adding to our preparations as often and as vigilant as we can. Make it a high priority. We should be shifting again from a state of just preparations, that's something you do just in case things might go bad, to a state of readiness, which is where we know things are going to go bad. It's not an if at this point, it's a when. And we know that that when is probably coming sooner than later. So now we shift into a state of readiness so that at some point we will be in a state of reacting to it. We may not have a lot of time. And I'm not saying by any means that in the next 24 to 48 hours the world's going to end or it's going to be greatly catastrophic. I'd say that there's an increased chance of those things happening based on the nature of everything going on. I know a lot of people say, oh, they call for jihad all the time. Yeah, but a lot of things are different right now. And so we can't just discount that as like, oh, it's just another time some guy in the Middle East calls for destruction. Things are a little different like right now, and there are thousands and thousands of people on the streets in the United States and around the world protesting, and the possibility of those protests becoming more violent are, maybe a pretty good chance. There's also been millions and millions of people pouring across this border, and we know for a fact that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of them, are part of sleeper cells or coming here with the intent to do harm when the time is right. You can't just see all this stuff and just discount it, folks. Only a fool would do that. You need to be getting your houses in order, preparing yourselves, your families, your communities, so that you can get into a state of readiness, which is a little bit of everything, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. That's that state of readiness, because we are entering, I believe, a kind of a different period. And as time will tell, it could be a very devastating one. Folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.